Good morning and welcome to our film Movies and the Impact of Images unit. But first I would like to start with a little bit of review here. First I'd like to talk about the communications model, and in particular the linear model, message delivery, and how that works. So first we have the sender who transmits a message through a channel to a receiver, filtered by a gatekeeper, generating feedback. Also remember that noise is anything that interferes with the delivery of a message. It can be environmental noise, it can be mechanical noise, it could also be semantic noise. The communications process has been graphed to look something like this. The source is encoded, the channel in which it is sent, this message. You have the noise that can interfere with that communication, decoding to the receiver. Then you will have a response, feedback, which goes back to the source. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the economics and organization of how media organizations make their money. First, we have the eyeballs. So who's watching? Who's listening? Those number of eyeballs equal a lot of money, hopefully. Advertising is the primary profit maker. Of course, we also have subscriptions as well. So if you're watching, say, a streaming service, you may have advertising pop up. If you pay for a premium service, you might have lessened advertising amounts, or maybe no advertising that you will have to watch. You may be paying for a subscription to watch a streaming service. If you're buying magazines, you will also see advertising, or you may have to pay for a subscription to a magazine as well. Now, let's not forget that public media, like NPR or PBS, is funded by tax dollars. And let's also remember that paper media, such as newspapers and magazines, are organized by space. So if you're buying an advertisement, you'll be buying, say, a quarter of a page, half a page, a whole page, etc. Broadcast, such as radio and television, is organized by time. So you'll be buying a commercial spot, perhaps, in a 30-second increment, or 15 seconds, or 10s or 5s. It could be a 2-minute commercial, what have you. Okay, I'm going to post the link to this movie. It's called A Trip to the Moon in English, but it was originally done in France, and it was called Le Voyage dans la Lune. So the director of this film was Georges Méliès, and he was a former magician. This is a 1902 film. Georges Méliès, he was very into spectacle and special effects. This benchmark set the stage for modern movies. He's sometimes called the father of special effects. So as you watch this film, which I have the link posted here, and I suggest watching the one that has the brass orchestra in the background. It just makes it a little more interesting. It's a silent film, of course, but you can hear the orchestra playing. It makes it a little more entertaining. I want you to look for these special effects, which were new at the time, very inventive. The stop edit, the splice, the disappearance, dissolve to change from one character to the next, and he uses dissolves to change scenes. He also uses double exposure, where he superimposes one image over another to make ghost-like images, adding people or objects to a scene who were not originally there. Now, we see these things all the time in today's movies, television, and internet spots, but in this day and age, this was all brand new and revolutionary. So I'd like you to watch the film on your own time, Le Voyage dans la Lune, or otherwise known as A Trip to the Moon. Let's talk a little bit about Star Wars. You're probably familiar with the George Lucas franchise, now owned by Disney. The director was George Lucas. And I'm going to post the original trailer, which you can watch. The six main movies um, that you're probably familiar with. The three first movies, then they did the three prequel, then they did the three after that. They've done lots of other movies like Han Solo's special film. They've had cartoons on Cartoon Network, Star Wars Rebels, etc. Huge franchise with lots of merchandise being sold through the years. So it has, from one space film to another. So you can watch Trip to the Moon and also Star Wars. You can see where we've come and where we're going, perhaps. So, what is the role of cinema in society? Well, if you think about it, what do movies do for you? Why do you watch movies? Why do you enjoy them? Movies help us reflect on our own lives, understand the lives of others sometimes, and teach us how society operates. Movies can also be a form of escapism, to escape our own problems, our own daily lives, go into another world, see new characters. So I'd like to talk about what we'll be discussing in this chapter, considering the film's early history, including the technological advances that made movies possible. We'll be tracing the evolution of the Hollywood studio system, which arose to dominate the global film industry. We'll explore how narrative styles developed in movie making, including the transition from silent film into talkies and the emergence of different camera techniques and movie genres. We'll be examining the transformation of the Hollywood studio system in response to new forces, such as the birth of television and the rise of home entertainment. We'll analyze the economics of the movie business, specifically how it makes money and what it invests in to stay profitable. We'll weigh movies' roles in our democracy today in the diverse world around us. All right, so jumping into the world of cinema, movies and the impact of images. Okay, so first of all, the art, craft, and business of filmmaking. Movies have always been a technological spectacle, a grand illusion that, like a magic act, uses smoke, light, and trickery to make marvelous illusions come to life. The concept of film goes back to as early as Leonardo da Vinci, who theorized in the late 1400s that a device could be created to reproduce reality. The magic lantern projected images painted on glass plates using an oil lamp as a source in the 1600s. Then the thaumatrope consisted of a two-sided card whose different images appeared to combine when the card was twirled. That was an early 1800s invention. Then leave it to a photographer, Edward Muybridge, who was the first person to make images move. And you probably would be interested to see his early film with the horse, in which they were trying to figure out, did all 4 feet of the horse come off the ground ever? Or was one foot always on the ground? So that's what they were trying to figure out, and Edward Muybridge was trying to figure out in his film. So George Eastman, or Eastman Kodak, invented the first roll and reel of film. And let's also talk about the kinetograph or kinetoscope, which kinetograph, when broken down, means to write motion, and kinetoscope means to see motion. So this zoetrope, just to explain a little bit more about that, was a cylindrical device with slits cut in it so that when it rapidly spun images on the inside, it made it appear to viewers as if the images were moving. But the true development stage of filmmaking began when inventors discovered a process for making a series of photography appear to move while being projected on a screen. So that's where we come to Edward Muybridge. First person to make images move, studied motion by using multiple cameras to take successive photographs of humans and animals in motion, and by 1880 he had developed a method for projecting the photographic images on a wall for public viewing. So, remember, of course, George Eastman developed the first roll reel of film. So if you see cameras or film, you'll notice that yellow color Kodak. You've probably seen that around in advertisements, maybe even if you go to CVS to print out some photos, those are Kodak booths there. So let's talk about, okay, this is a couple photos of the magic lantern and how that looked. Here is the thaumatrope and how you would use that. Images on a central cardboard with two strings, and you flip it over and it creates a moving image. Here's the zoetrope. The slits on the side, the image is inside spinning to make it look like moving pictures. And I invite you to watch the short film from Edward Muybridge, where he tries to discover if all 4 feet of the horse are off ground at the same time. Here are photos of the kinetograph and kinetoscope. I have another website here. You might want to check that out. Let's talk a little bit about the Lumiere brothers, though. So, meanwhile in France, brothers Louis and Auguste Lumiere developed the cinematograph. They combined camera, film development, and a projection system. So, the Lumiere brothers' cinematoscope and the arrival of a train. Meanwhile, in France, brothers Louis and Auguste Lumiere developed the cinematograph, a combined camera, film development, and projection system. With the Vitascope, a new large screen system through which longer film strips could be projected without interruption. This invention hinted at movies becoming a mass medium. By 1900, short movies had become part of the entertainment industry and used as visual novelties in amusement arcades, traveling carnivals, wax museums, and vaudeville theaters. So, the art, craft, and business of filmmaking. So, demand for film helped by industrialization entertainment. So, people with the industrialization of machines and having things made for them, people moving into the cities, people had more free time. And that leads me to the next one of urbanization. People were able to get to a theater because of their proximity. And also, immigration was really good for business because a lot of people came to this country and they were looking for some entertainment as well as working and, getting settled in this country. But more people is just plain good for business. The movies became a true mass medium when they became widely accessible and began telling coherent stories with specific meanings for the viewers. Narrative films were introduced in the 1890s as movies that tell a story through the series of actions depicted. Here, the industry went from the entrepreneurial stage to the mass medium stage. Nickelodeons in the early 1900s were really crude storefront theaters, a type of movie theater whose name combines the admission price, which at this time was 5 cents, and the Greek word for theater. They showed silent films mostly, and I have a picture here to show you of some early Nickelodeons. So they were theaters. They weren't too fancy. They got fancier as time went on because that attracted a different audience.